Okay, we've got a opening here of AutoCAD Mechanical Desktop Power Pack. This is what I use to do my 2D drawings, and you'll see that there are basically three programs required. Now you don't have to use three programs, but if you're in this for the long haul, I recommend that you use one, a drawing program that you are comfortable with. Mine happens to be AutoCAD. Two, you're going to need a creation program, some kind of program that's going to be able to take your 2D drawings and stretch them up, extrude them into a 3D object. And then you're going to need an interpreter program. That, in my case, happens to be Simplify, and it converts the output, the digital output, into a STL file that is easy for me to work with, giving the material, the information, to my 3D printer. Now, you don't have to do that. There are programs out there that are all in one, but this is how I do it. It works very efficiently for me. I get very precise parts, and it just fits my style. So you can take a look at my process, and if it seems reasonable, use it. If not, maybe you'll learn something anyway. So here we've got a little drawing, blank screen. This has to be named Wheel and Hub, and we're going to just start with something really basically simple. And we'll go ahead and start with a circle. And we'll start with this. We will start with a circle. And in this case, that circle, the diameter is going to be 1.5 inches. And every circle needs a hub, needs a hole in the middle. So in this case, the diameter of that is going to be 0.25. And right now it's just basically a CD or a DVD disc. But it wouldn't make a very good wheel. It needs a hub and it needs a tire, or some kind of width to the rim. And so we're going to give it a little offset of 1.25 inches. 0.125 inches is good. And now we have something that actually resembles a wheel. Now, if we wanted to, we can get complicated. We can copy this little hole in the middle and move it up here, about there, give it an array, polar array, selecting my objects. That one, center of the array is going to be right about there, and 8 of them looks good. Okay, and there we go. Now we've got a real wheel, you might say, but it's still only 2D. We've got to convert it. Let's go. You have to save the drawing, of course. Everyone knows that. And I'm going to do save as my little wheel and hub experiment here. And yes, I want to replace it. Now it's saved. It's locked in. We can get rid of or minimize AutoCAD. And let's draw in Cubify Design. Let's open that AutoCAD drawing, wheel and hub. There it is. And open it. And yes, okay. Looks good. And there it is. Now, in Cubify Design, this is Cubify Design 2D, and in this particular drawing, it gives you a place here where you can do all sorts of little odd things. Unfortunately for me, none of these things really have any use. And so since I use AutoCAD anyway, I don't need them. And so I can go directly to activating sketch, and there it is. Now I'm in the sketch. And you can see I can manipulate all of these parts of the drawing. These are real lines, polylines. Every object that you put into Cubify Design has to be a closed polyline, or some kind of a closed object. You can actually have 4 separate lines forming a cube as long as they all touch the corners. Everything has to be closed. Otherwise, it does not work, and that can be the slightest 1/1,000,000th of an inch opening, and it will not function. So you have to have all these lines closed. Now we've got everything here. You'll notice this bounding box, this little red bounding box, and it doesn't really do anything. It just shows you the limits of your sketch. You can't touch it. It's just there for illustration purposes only. And I go in here and I select everything, all the drawing. I hit Control-C, and that has copied the wheel onto the clipboard. And now we call up here, we'll do it here, a new part. And this is where you draw the part itself. Now, for some reason, the Cubify Design people decided that they wanted to start you in modeling space. And modeling space is great if you have a model, but since you're creating a model, you have to go to a sketch. You have to go into the place where you can put your sketch. So you activate the sketch by clicking onto this little rectangle here. And you'll see that you click on the rectangle and you have to hit sketch. You got a grid. If you've got a grid, you can now plant your sketch. And Control-T is how we're going to do that. Control-T for, I don't know. Now, notice that your sketch is still floating around by your cursor, and it's ready to paste again. It's ready to paste anywhere. Escape, get rid of it. But it is still on the clipboard. If I hit Control-T again, it comes right back, and it's ready to paste again. So there it goes, it's gone. Now we have just one sketch right in the center, and that's because we clicked on this little snap controller right here. If I turn that off, it'll plant the drawing anywhere I click. But leaving it on lets me get right back to that center spot each and every time. Now remember I was telling you about this plane, this rectangle out here? Look at this. There's 3 of them. They're all X, Y, and Z. And in this particular case, we're working with the XY plane, which is the one that I happen to like. And you can see up here, you've got all these little, follow the cursor to the top, there it is. All these little boxes that tell you, boom, where the XY plane is. And I'm just rolling my mouse wheel to get in and out, zoom in and out. And notice the zoom follows my cursor. So I've got the sketch right here. Now I could extrude this, but it wouldn't be very effective. What we want to do is we have to take this one step at a time and actually extrude the plane, the web, the big part behind that's holding everything together. There's our rim. We don't need that. I hit on it and I click on it and hit delete. And here's our hub, and I get rid of the hub. Now you can see I've got this flat disc with holes in it. And I can now extrude that, and I'm going to have a disc with holes in it. But I have to go to part modeling now to do that. Part modeling is a very interesting this is where a lot of action takes place. And you can extrude solids, says the boss, add material. This is all real material right here. And each one of these has their own secret little way of working, but they are all very easy to use and very effective. But you got to know their secrets. And then over here you have the cut. This is negative material. This is all holes and negative stuff that you take away. And so these 2 windows have very similar properties, except one is real material, one is nothing but air. It's just holes. Here's your threading. You can actually make screw holes and external threads. You can make screws. You can make threaded holes and so forth. But here's some stuff that really you work with quite a bit. The first one that you really have to think about, and you're going to use a lot, is your plane window. This is identifying. You see it's got a little icon there. It's a reference plane. Insert reference plane. You can create new planes with that. And remember, since you're working only on one plane at a time, you have to create new planes all the time. And it keeps your drawing organized too. It's a very neat tool. The fillet, self-explanatory really. Fillet and camphor. They will create the fillets for you. Linear pattern, you can, this is like the array tool in AutoCAD. Mirror, I don't use it very much, but you can create some pretty interesting little design features with mirror. Draft is more or less, it pulls your drawing out of the plane. Scale obviously does the same thing. Trim does the same thing. And Boolean Unite, that's a whole nother complicated little tool that we'll go into in another lesson. And ignore these, insert catalog, part color, and all that. That's if you're doing some kind of illustration work. So here you are. Basically, you've got your sketch. You want to draw it out. You want to create something. So boom, you hit extrude, and it automatically goes to 5 inches. And you'll notice you've got an arrow, and that's telling you what direction out of the plane. There's our plane that we're working in, that our sketch is laid up in. And it's going to draw that right out of that plane, and it gives you 5 inches. Well, we can change that. We can just go up here where the dark blue is, and I'm going to draw it out 0.06, 6/100ths of an inch. There it is. And as long as this dark blue, it's still pretty much like modeling clay. It hasn't set up yet. If you click out here in empty space, there it is. There's your part. And so you can click on this plane, and we're going to draw out a new plane, and we're going to draw it out to the surface, this surface right here, which was 0.06. 0.06. And apply. And close. Now we've just created a new plane entirely. And don't let that worry you too much, because all we want to do is work on this surface right here. And next we're going to go back. I'm going to go here. I'm going to be on that surface plane now, not the one that we drew the thing out of, and activate 2D Sketch again. Now we're working right on the surface of that thing. Well, let's go back to our drawing. We come over here and pick up our drawing again. We don't need these holes in the middle anymore, so we can hit escape, and you'll notice that everything deactivates. Now all we want to put our tire rim on, and holding our shift key, we can click on 2 objects, and again Control C, and go back to our part. There's our part. Control T, paste that part right in there, and since we've got snap going, it puts it precisely right in there. Again, you see it's still floating around. Hit escape. There it's gone. But now we're working, as you can see, right on the surface, this new surface that we created. And we're going to extrude that out into a rim, a tire rim. So go back to tire modeling. Extrude. Boom. And let's draw that out, not very far, 0.05. It'll just give us a reinforced edge for hitting rocks and stuff if we're going to. And now it's still pliable if we want to play with it. Click out here in empty space, and there's our rim. Now we're still working on this surface, right? We want to draw the hub out some, and so let's go back on that surface and hit activate 2D Sketch. You have to have a plane selected in order to go back to sketch. It has to, you're telling the program, what plane are you going to be drawing on? And you tell it which plane you're going to be drawing on, the program will go right back to sketch. Now let's go back to our drawing. We need to pick up the hub. Oops, I clicked on the part. There we go. Here's our drawing. Now here's our hub. And I go shift again, so I can get more than one item. It's a little sensitive to have to be right on it. Control C. Now we've erased that rim that we had on the clipboard, and now we picked up the hub. And we're going to go back to our part. And we hit Control T. There's our hub. And again, snaps right into the center. And again, we're right on the surface, as you can see. So let's go up here to part modeling. We're going to extrude that, but we're going to extrude that much higher. Let's go 0.1 inches off of that web. And now we have our hub, we've got our tire, we've got our web, we've got our lightning holes, and we've got basically a pretty good part. There's a good wheel. Now, we want to, any engineer will tell you, if you've got just a sharp 90-degree angle in any part, you have a place where force can concentrate, and that can be a weakness. And it probably wouldn't matter much on a small part like this, but just to demonstrate, I'm going to show you how to put in a fillet. Now, we know that this bright blue part here is 0.1 inches, 1/10 of an inch high off of this plane right here. So we're going to go in here and we're going to pick a fillet, and we want that little edge right there to be our fillet. And once again, you get a little data window up here, and they always start at a 1/2 inch. Obviously, that's not going to work. You can see this little representation of how big that fillet would be. It's bigger than our part. So we don't want a 1/2 inch. We want, say, something like 0.05. And we hit apply. And you can see this fillet instantly forms. Let's close that. Fillet instantly forms right there in that spot. And that gives us a tremendous amount more strength, keeping the hub from falling off the wheel. We can do the same thing in here. Remember, this was 0.05. Well, we can click right on that. We go back to fillet. And let's say that we want, instead of 0.05, let's go with 0.03. And apply. And there's the fillet inside the hub, the rim rather. There's our fillet. Click in the empty space, and it's now sitting concrete. There it is. There's our wheel and our hub. Now, this doesn't do us much good. It's just a 3D representation of the part. It doesn't help us much. If we can't pick it up, we can't hold it, we can't assemble it. There's nothing we can do with it until we create it in the 3D printer. So let's export. Now, we can save the drawing if we want. We can save it as we want to come back and work on it and do some other stuff to it. We could save it. It'll bring it back one day and save as usual. But what we want to do is we want to export a real part, an STL file. This is where we're going to convert our drawing to an STL file. That's something that a 3D printer can actually use. And so we're going to call this just a wheel. And we're going to just save it. It's that simple. And it gives you little dialogues. This stuff, yeah, it works fine for me. And as soon as you get this black box and you see the STL file loads, it's saved as a STL file. Now we don't need this anymore. We just minimize everything out, and we're going to go through our Simplify 3D program. And I'm going to open Simplify, and we're going to show you how to convert this to a 3D printed part. And there's Simplify. Opens instantly. It's a very, very good little program. It opens with your 3D representation of your printer table. This happens to be approximately the size of my printer table. And I've got 3 little grommets that I made earlier, and I'm just going to remove those guys. And we're going to import. And what are we going to import? We're going to import wheel. Oop. And yes, and there's our little wheel. I'm left click, roll it around, take a look at it. It looks pretty good. But there is that orange little model, yellow model, whatever, highway paint model of our wheel that we just created. Now this wheel was just a few minutes ago, just created out of absolutely nothing. And I can go in here to edit process, and this is where you really get kind of complicated. You got to study this one a little bit more, and I won't go into it for you, but this is where you set up all the parameters for your specific 3D printer. What makes your 3D printer tick, and what kind of material are you using, and what are the temperatures you're using, and lots of stuff to do with 3D printing. That's a whole other class. And we accept all those parameters, and we go prepare to print. And it gets ready to print it. And then, in my case, I've just turned on my 3D printer. In my case, I can go ahead and start printing and it says begin printing over the USB. My part disappeared because now it's going to recreate the part as it prints it. But what I want to do is go up here to Tools, Machine Control Panel, and I'm watching the STL code actually load and start. And here comes the temperature graph as my bed is starting to heat up. Here's the temperature line for my extruder head and all that. It would take us 10 minutes to print that wheel. And I won't print it right now because I don't have any use for it. But this is how it would all begin. When this is through, I'm not going to have to touch anything else. The 3D printer is going to print that part if I let it continue, which I'm not. Emergency stop, turning everything on. We can go back to the model view, and there's our wheel. I can create more of them if I want. I can go up here and go edit, duplicate models, and I want 3 of them. Okay, copy them. It gives me 3 new ones. I hit center and arrange, and it automatically centers them, puts them flat on the table. There they are. It would print 4 wheels, and we could make a robot if we wanted to. Or a rock crusher. I like the rock crusher idea. But there it is. That's how it's done. And if I let this proceed, it would print me 4 little 1.5-inch diameter wheels. Just like that. And that's about it for this particular lesson. I'll do some more later. But that's how it all happens. And thank you very much for watching. And we're going to see you later.